Yes, I, your brother and servant, Rastafari. Just finishing up a little bit of our high intensity breath training. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about it as we cover our fifth Torah study portion, the life of Sarah. And we find that Sarah lived to be 127 years old. Now, what kind of health do you find in a woman who lived to be 127 years old? I think it doesn't take much intellect or much reasoning to realize that Sarah lived a very healthy, a very harmonious, and a very pleasurable life. If not pleasurable to her senses, it was definitely pleasurable to her cells. And when I say cells, I'm speaking of the 100 million cells you have within your physical body. Now these cells, they divide over time. As we age, our cells begin to divide. And this is what creates the process of aging, which is the dividing of your cells. Interestingly enough, there's a recent study that has been released. And I try to read upon all these studies with me being a physical education major and still kind of dibbling and dabbling in fitness training. I try to be aware of all the scientific cutting edge studies that are out. And there's recently been a study released that speaks of what we are into with our Rastafari yoga, that speaks of this high intensity training. And you know what they say about this high intensity training? They say that they have figured out that high intensity training extends your life. Yes, that's right, extends your life for specific reasons. Now what happens when we age is our cells divide. And each cell has almost 100 bases upon that cell. These are your DNA strands, I'm sorry. Each DNA strand has a certain amount of bases on each cell, and these bases are called telomeres. And telomeres begin to divide along with the cells. But when the cell rejuvenates, each telomere has depleted by a certain percentage. Say for instance, when we were born with maybe 15,000 telomeres. And each time our cells begin to divide, the amount of telomeres deplete. Well, recent research has found that high intensity exercises, as we see right here, as we were speaking of earlier this week with our high intensity breath training, studies have proved that this sort of training extends the life, extends the amount of, it decreases the amount of telomere depletion that happens on a cellular level. And this is something great for us to talk about this week as we talk on and reason upon our fifth Torah portion study, which is the life of Sarah. And we witness and bear witness to her 127 years of life, the longevity of life revealed within her. So it's really important for us to take into consideration as we study the history of ancient Israel. When we look into the Torah, we need to realize and be able to receive of our history and not just make it something spiritualized in which it becomes religious. We want to take God's word and our history and recollect it, to reconcile it. And we reconcile her perfect health by seeking to promote that within our life. We want to live to 127 just as Sarah did. We want to continue down the path that was revealed within our ancestors in ancient Israel. We want to take up on finishing what was going on in the beginning, according to God's word. So that's our call in Rastafari, all right? So I'm going to come back with a little bit more information on this. Hopefully I can break it down a little bit better so we can all understand the necessity of proper exercise. And not just looking at exercise on a physical level. We have to look at exercise on a cellular level. Okay, when we look at things on a cellular level, that's a microcosmic level, realizing that as above, so below. So if we begin to recognize our responsibility for that which we do not see, how much more responsible will we be for that which we do see? You see what I'm saying? And this is our responsibility and our blessing in the new name of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I. So as I mentioned before, we'll be going through all this week talking about life and death and promoting life and how to avoid death and how to strengthen ourselves so that we can be revealed with that same longevity as we witnessed in the life of Sarah, okay? So keep with the eye, brothers and sisters. I thank us all for fellowshipping, and I give thanks for all of the eye taking part in the Rastafari yoga. You know, if we could, we'd be high in the mountains, away from society. But since we are not in that situation or position, we take part in this Rastafari yoga to bring ourselves to a certain part of harmony, a certain amount of a collective discipline, a certain amount of promoting health, happiness, and holiness through these particular practices and principles that help us to affirm this intimate union that we have with Jah in the new name of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I. So we'll be covering a little bit more of this. I'll go in a little bit more in depth about this study that's been released, and we can continue talking on life and death and how we can promote our longevity of life as was witnessed in the life of Sarah, who lived to be 127 years old. What health?